Welcome to the People, Passion, and Purpose podcast, where you will hear from creative small business owners in the trenches every single day, talking story, talking lessons, talking failures, talking truth. I'm your host, Nina L. Kovner. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back to the podcast. This week, I am so stoked to have an incredibly special businesswoman, human, leader, owner, and the awesomeness creator behind the Radically Curly brand, Danielle Green. Danielle, welcome.
Nina, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here and so excited.
Well, I have been wanting to get you on this podcast for a while. And, now that I'm kind of back in the swing of things, I know we've been a little inconsistent on our podcast, but you've been on the list for a long time. So thank you so much for making space for us. So let's just dive right in. There's so many questions I want to ask you, but let's start with, how long have you been a hairdresser? How long have you been a salon owner? And what kind of inspired this journey for you?
I've been a hairdresser legally. I say that because I grew up in the business. So I started doing hair at my mom's shop when I was a kid. We called them beauty shops back in the day.
Yeah.
So I remember doing my first roller set when I was 9 years old on my mom's best friend, and she would let me do her hair every week. And I just grew up in the business, and from there just kind of blossomed into finding my way into school after apprenticing my mother, and then moving on and just kept growing in the field and wanted to be an instructor. So I got my instructor's license. Then I found my way at an Aveda salon that I loved, and I just kept growing and following this path of doing hair. And then one day I said, I want to try this myself. And I had no fucking idea how hard it would be.
You're not the only owner to say that.
Girl. I know you said 20 minutes, but girlfriend, I've got some years on this conversation. But yeah, so I ended up really just following my passion, which was I wanted to do hair and just do hair very well and just craft my skills. And then I realized, wait, hold on a minute, I have a specialty. And then it just led me down this other path. And we'll, get into that later. But I worked at salons for years and helped people behind the chair. I was always like a natural teacher in a way, or a mentor, because I had great mentors. So I just wanted to give back what I learned. And I still do that to this day.
I love that. So we just have to jump right into, tell me about the name Radically Curly. Where did it come from and what does it mean?
Oh, wow. Well, it's a pretty badass name, right?
I fucking love it.
But at first I didn't really know where to begin, because my push wasn't really trying to find the name per se. It was more about what I was trying to do, and what I was trying to do for the industry and collectively as a whole is how Radically Curly, the name, came about. Because at first it started out as more of like a revolution, and that revolution included me doing meetup groups and bringing women together to embrace their natural hair. And I would just go and I would sit and talk with a group of women, and I would give them free swag. And we would do our thing and share stories about our hair journeys. And that was back in 2009.
Wow.
And so, yeah, from that, it went from, okay, maybe I should name my salon space whenever I get it, Curly Revolution. And so I kind of toyed with that, but that was like the name of my meetup group. And I had a partner at the time, and my partner in life at the time, we just kind of together thought, oh, Curly Revolution would be great. Well, that partnership ended. That ended. And Curly Revolution, I found out, belonged to a company. It was trademarked by a company. So I was like, holy shit, I have t-shirts that I'm selling that say Curly Revolution, and I could get served with a cease and desist.
Yep.
So I quickly shut that down in terms of using that name. So again, I really did not know. I still didn't know. And I went years and years without knowing. So I came up with another name. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that will listen to this podcast and go, I know exactly what she's talking about, because you don't really know what are you going to call your business or your brand. So I came up with another name. It was Hair Artisan. And so I was like, okay, that kind of works, but that's not connecting the community that I'm trying to represent and be an activist for. So it took this bald white guy who was a client who had 3 hairs that I would cut. He was my client, and his wife who brought her kids to me. He happened to be like this. He worked with not trademarks, but what's the other patents? He worked with patents. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I told him, I said, hey, Steve, I need a name, because Nina, I had this burning desire inside me to deliver something to the community and the masses as a whole. And I just didn't know how to name it. And I know I didn't want to just use Danielle Green, because there's a lot of Danielle Greens out there. I didn't want that. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway, he came in one day and he said, well, let me think about it. And then he gave me a phone call. And he said, well, you went from Curly Revolution and, you were out here fighting for the struggle and you knew what you were doing. But now, I feel like you're really radical and you really know who you are. What about Radically Curly? I said, that's the name. It clicked right there. And I had already was like in this mode where I was operating like I'm out here encouraging my clients, just whether they were going to work with their natural hair, fighting with, the military and having to go and, deal with problems they were having at the military, in courtrooms, professionals, everyone. And I'm standing for these women behind the chair saying, hey, this is how you're going to do it. This is what we're going to do. So I already had that in me, that fight for my community. So when he said Radically Curly, I said, buy the domain.
I love it.
That's it. Yep.
I love it. And, I'm just going to take a little quick business tip break and say, yes, trademark searching is critical if you want to trademark a name, if you want to own a name, if you want to ensure that you're not trademark infringing on somebody else's name, if you want to protect a mark, which is an actual asset to your business. And you can just go to the USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office. You can do a very simple search. And then I always recommend LegalZoom to actually file the mark and take care of everything else. No, this is not an ad, but I do work with a small business every day. I use LegalZoom for Passion Squared and recommend LegalZoom for all of my clients. So I'm so glad you brought up that trademark thing. But let's go back to, you said a few things. You said you see yourself as an activist for people to embrace natural hair and the struggle of working with certain hairstyles. Can you educate us on that? What specifically are you talking about when it comes to embracing natural hair, and what is the struggle?
Well, let me just be very transparent. I found out just recently, I know my DNA, how it breaks down, right? So I'm half white and half black. And I've dealt with my mixed hair my whole life. I went from relaxing my hair when I was a kid. Well, my mom relaxing my hair because she didn't know what to do with it. And mind you, my parents who adopted me when I was a baby, they're African American, but my biological family was black and white, and I didn't know that. So when I was growing up in my mom's shop, I wanted all the styles that all the other black women were getting. Now, mind you, I'm half black and half white, so I'm a mixed kid. you know?
Mm-hmm.
And growing up in the business, once I kind of made that switch from under my mom's roof out into my own, I saw there was a huge problem in the industry. And that problem in the industry was so massive that it really wasn't the industry's fault. And it really, I couldn't find fault anywhere. And the only place I could bring it back to was that it has to do with our culture and how, as a whole, we tend to lean more towards what looks or what other people want us to look like. And so I had a problem with that. I did modeling back in the day, all kinds of stuff. And I saw this in Hollywood. I saw it on print. I saw it on TV every day. I did not see enough people that look like me with my hair. And I had a real problem with that. And so in the business, when I started wearing my hair natural all the time, people would say, "How do you get your hair like that? My hair is like that. Like, what do I do?" And we're talking years and years ago. And I'm like, "Well, let's wash your hair and check it out." And I would see these beautiful curls. And I always told everyone, "Your curls are so beautiful. Let's work with them." Now, here's the problem in our industry. Back then, and we're talking 20 years ago, we did not have the products that we have today to work with multi-textured hair. And I'm not just talking textured hair as it is so loosely used in the beauty industry. I'm talking about hair of just all kinds of just multi-ethnic hair you can't even put on a typing scale.
Right.
From, straight to kinky. There's hair like that out there. So me as an activist was that person who I felt as an activist that I'm out here not only encouraging, but educating. Because how do you solve problems? You solve them with education. So I thought I wanted to be that person to educate first behind the chair. And that's what I've been doing. And now my reach, because of social media, there are more and more people who collectively want to do the same. They want to embrace textured hair and multi-textured hair and curly hair. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. It feels very empowering.
Yes.
Especially if society has said to a certain group of people with a certain texture of hair that your hair in its natural state is not okay.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. It still happens to this very day. I have a client. I had a client in my chair last week who was, doing something on television for a nonprofit, and she got a hate call come in over her natural textured hair.
Oh,
and she basically let this person know, "Hey, I it saddens me that you would take the time to focus on my hair instead of the nonprofit and why we're really here." Because our hair, it grows out of our head this way. It's not a mistake that our hair comes out this way. And so beating it into submission or submitting to someone else's idea of how we should look is not okay. Collectively, as a whole, as a group of hairstylists in the industry, it is our responsibility to be able to embrace these clients that come in our chair and not only empower them, but educate ourselves on how to work with their hair so that we can teach them how to work with their hair. And a lot of our clients today, especially in 2018, they're going to teach you how to work with their hair because of YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube has really set the tone for the education that's out there for the natural hair community. And so because of that, I'm just one person. And the bigger problem for me is that it is a problem in our industry, in our theory, because I'm bringing it back to education. And one of my ultimate wishes in life before I leave this earth would be that every cosmetology school across the world, but we can start with the United States, offers education centered around natural hair. Let there be a full on segment, a full course, not just a paragraph.
Right.
And not teaching us just how to manipulate it and beat it into submission. Teach us how to work with it. That is right there the number one reason why it has taken us decades to get to this point right now where we are, where we're radically curly and we know who we are. You can't tell a curly girl that she has to wear her hair straight now, because she's going to look at you and say, "What did you say?"
I love it. Yes.
And you can't tell a curly girl, you can't walk up to a curly girl, most naturals, and say, "Can I touch your hair?" Because she might look at you and say, "No, you cannot touch my hair," because it's a sensitive subject. It's very emotional. And I'm just so thankful that now where we are in the industry as a whole, we have other artists that have fully taken on this responsibility, because that's what it is. If you have the craft within you to be able to do what we do behind the chair and you have that talent, it's really your responsibility to share that so that other people in our community will have that benefit and be able to work with their hair.
Well, I love that challenge that you've given to the professional beauty industry to I mean, curriculum. That's such a great example, because when I was in beauty school 100 years ago, it most definitely was completely about, like you said, manipulating and changing and putting into place and all those things. And it's like, yes, like, of course, where is that education? So I'm so glad you brought that up. And Danielle, you are doing, like, you're a big part of that movement, you know? And so if there's any cosmetology schools or whoever creates that shit, call my girl, because
yes,
Danielle definitely, obviously, is passionate about this, but is very well skilled and knowledged in this area. And you know what that made me think about, Danielle? I just saw a preview last night for, I believe it's coming on Netflix, Napoli Ever After.
Yes.
It was a book based on a book, and it really speaks to what you're talking about, right?
Yes, it does. It does. It totally does. And I can't wait for that.
I almost started crying with watching the preview. It just felt so empowering.
Yes.
And that's not my journey, obviously not my struggle, but I respect it, you know, and I'm interested in it. And I was just like, fuck yes.
Yeah. I mean, and you're gonna see more and more stories. I can't think of the actress right now. I see her face, but she shaved her head for that role.
I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah. She shaved her head for that role. So, you know, we have more greats like Camille Friend, who did all the natural hair for Black Panther. You know, just somebody who is also out there teaching in her community and for the community to spread the knowledge. And she's doing it in her way in the for Hollywood. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then we have other big greats out there too that are doing the same, but it's just not enough of us that are, I guess, willing to take it on per se, because of the lack of education. So, you know, I know that people ask me all the time, well, you know, what about, why don't you teach classes? And yeah, I would love to do that. And it could be something that I'll get into more, but I'm running a business and raised my kid, you know, and it takes a lot. I mean, if I'm going to do something like that, I want to make sure that it's sharp and together and there's nothing fucked up about it. I want
Yeah.
to make sure
No, I
I
get
have
it.
my shit together.
I get it.
So,
But again, you are doing something. And like you said,
and this is my way right
yes,
here. This is what I'm doing.
And thanks to the social web, you're building your community on Instagram and sending ripples throughout into areas you don't even know. You don't even realize the impact you're having. So let's move to, I obviously I already know what we all know what you're passionate about. I want to talk about successes and failures in your journey. I know that, we see so much in society about, oh, I'm doing awesome and oh, I'm so successful and whatever. But can you share what kind of your idea of success and what that's been for you? And also what has been one of your biggest failures and what lessons did you learn from that?
I'll start with my biggest failures first, because that one is huge. I was a salon or am a salon owner, but in the past, I was that salon owner that didn't know how to lead. And I led with my heart and with my friendship without any boundaries. And so what ended up happening to me was I got hurt really badly, and I owned it. I owed it to myself to just own it that, wow, I really wasn't the best leader. I was a really good friend, but, so be careful, in this part of your life when you're a salon owner, because it's so easy to cross those lines and blur those lines. And for me, it was that type of a failure that really sat me down and really, I had to just get still and get quiet and really just see what was it that I did wrong. And what really helped me was A school.
Oh.
A school really helped me because I learned through my peers in A school, just those little things from other people's lessons that I was doing wrong. Because you just can't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to own a salon and it's going to be successful. And I'm going to have like 6 stylists and we're going to be badass. It's not that easy. There's so many things. So, but out of that failure, it just like a lotus flower, I felt like I was just so covered in mud, and I was so ashamed and had so much anxiety and just felt like an asshole and like I let people down and all that. But out of that, I realized, hey, I'm human. And I will own everything that I did in my part of that failure. And now I have another chance. And the reason why I have another chance is because I got right back up and made a decision to go after what I wanted and focused on Radically Curly, that it wasn't about the mistakes that I made. It was more about my goal for my community. I had to bring everything back to my why, because it just wasn't about all the other shit. That was just the mistakes that I made on not having good boundaries. And so when you're out here running a business, some people can take something like that and just stop and quit. Yes. And I'm just not a quitter. So I'm not a quitter. And I just thought, I'm just going to get back up. And what got me up out of my temporary depression, my temporary low self-esteem, was watching Eric Thomas on YouTube. And he's this motivational speaker, and he would tell you, he just kind of screams at you, you. And, are you a lion or are you a gazelle? That kind of stuff just really woke me up. It just snapped me out of it. And he believes in that, you can't just fall into that lull of being down on yourself, because people are going to pass you up. And for me, my dream and my vision was more important. My why was more important than all the shit that I just took myself through.
Right.
I did that, so I had to own that, move on from it and learn from that. And I can unpack that bag and look at that when I want to, or when I see myself slipping, I remind myself now, I learned from that. I'm not going to go down that lane again. So that has made me, I feel, in this time in my life, more successful because now I have a clear direction. Now I know what I want to do. Now I know that when I have relationships in my business, they're more about empowering others. And I don't have to you don't have to be in my innermost tiny little circle of people that I call and shoot the shit with every day. You're going to be a different part of my life. This part of my life is to enhance your life. And then what we do together enhances everyone else's life around us. So I really just kind of changed my whole perception and how I saw it. And now that makes me feel successful. It's not about the money. It's more about building that relationship in my community and that people can trust me. That to me measures success for me.
Danielle, I am literally crying right now. And I don't know if I've done that on a podcast yet.
Oh,
that was so incredibly beautiful. And I am so inspired by you. I've watched you through this whole thing, and it's so true. And that to me is the success. As I was listening to your story, I'm like, this is like the greatest success story ever told. And getting back to that why. And I'm so grateful that that's what you discovered and that's what you chose to do. And you have no idea how much that is going to help others who are listening to this right now, who are going through it, because everyone's going through something,
That's true.
It's just so beautiful. I have
Thank
to
you,
ask you, you said that's what success looks like. My next question was, what does success look like to you? What does it feel like to you?
Well, right now, what it feels like to me is when I get someone who reaches out to me on social media and says, hey, you talked about wearing scrunchies, that post you made about scrunchies. You told me to do that a long time ago. I wanted you to know that I've been doing that and my hair has changed and has grown so much. That to me is success.
I love it. Yes.
To me, that people hear and they're listening and they want this knowledge from us. So, if you have a tip out there or the best kept secret, now's the time to share it. That's how we learn, is we share the knowledge. And that's, to me, that defines my success for me, is when people come back and say, hey girl, when you told me about such and such and such and such, it really made a difference. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel successful.
And it really goes back to, the promise of the Radically Curly brand, which is about owning your own beauty and stepping into it and finding strength in it. And it's such an empowering message. And I could not think of a better person than you to be sharing that message. I saw on your Instagram bio, but still like air, I rise. Of course, taken by Maya Angelou. Of course, yes. I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite quote?
Well, there's girl. We only have 20 minutes.
I know. We're at 28, so we're doing great.
Oh, okay.
And I'm okay with that.
Good, girl, because we got all day. We can keep them entertained,
Yes, we could.
I have so many. That one right there is really good. But Angela Davis, when I was searching for the name Radically Curly, and he gave me the idea, the insight, to use that name, I looked up the word radical because I wanted to make sure I understood what it meant. And Angela Davis popped up. And one of her quotes about radical, I think she says, is that it simply means grasping it by the root, or grasping things at the root. And that to me is what Radically Curly is, because I know what the problem is in our industry. and it comes from our textbook version of defining texture. That is the sole root of the problem. And I am using my voice and have chosen to step forward to use my voice to tell these brands that come in my salon now, hey, your product's not in alignment with my brand. Thank you, but no thank you. Have a great day. And or when they come to me and they say, hey, this serum and this will do so much to smooth. No, sir. No, thank you. But what you can do is you could tell your suits at the top that if they want to really know about multicultured hair, to give me a call, because I love to teach them encourage them on what we really need out here and what you need to bring into our salons to work with textured hair. Because right now we're having to go down the street to Target, CVS, Walmart, and get products like that over the counter to work with natural hair. So for me, I'm using my voice to let people know behind the chair, hey, girlfriend, that product that you have on your shelf is pretty. It's pretty expensive, but it's not going to do what you need it to do for textured hair. So let me give you a little advice. You need to go over here down the street, and you can tell your client where to find it too. And let's stop playing this game with trying to sell something that's so fancy in a bottle that doesn't do shit for our hair, because our clients can see right through that, and they know that. So educate yourself on what works for our hair type. And I'll keep being that voice and pushing more. The more I learn, the more you'll learn, and we can learn together. And if you have something to share with me, share it with me, because I'm open to learn more.
I love that. Danielle, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Before we end, where can we find you on the internet?
Well, I'm everywhere. I am all over the place. My hub is Instagram, so it's Radically Curly. That's my most busiest social site, I would guess, that I could say. And then my website, radicallycurlysalon.com. And I'm right here in Las Vegas. I don't spend a lot of time on the Strip, but if you're out here, hit me up. Maybe we can learn something together behind the chair.
That's so awesome. And Danielle, again, I have to just thank you for not only just saying yes to this podcast, being so open and sharing your story, using your voice. I talk about that a lot. I know how difficult it is. I understand, the struggles that we go through as women, as business owners. And I am just continually inspired, and keep using that voice. You are making a difference. You are making an impact. I'm so proud of you. I love you. Thank you so much.
I love you too, Nina. Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening to this week's podcast. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. To learn more about Passion Squared, you can visit us at passionsquared.net. You can find us on the gram and on Facebook at Passion Squared, and be sure to subscribe and share with your friends. We're so grateful. Thank you so much for joining us. Have an awesome day, guys. Love you.